The Avalanche used to be one of the best early hard mode weapons, back when all true melee weapons had a huge increase in their size. But is this weapon still good now that it has been nerfed? The Avalanche is a true melee weapon that has a 33% drop chance from Cryogen. The weapon has a close range, and once you hit an enemy with it, it spawns 4 ice bombs that then explode into 4 gravity affected ice shards each. All these projectiles pass through walls, and they could be quite effective against multiple enemies. And you guessed it, also worm bosses. Speaking of worm bosses, there just happen to be 2 of them at this stage of progression. Them being the Destroyer and the Aquatic Scourge, which means once you get your hands on the Avalanche, you can have an easy time against them. But to get it, you would first need to beat Cryogen, who isn't the easiest hard mode boss, but he is technically intended to be fought before the mech bosses, so beating him before them shouldn't be that hard. Now we can get to the main point of the video. Before the Bountiful Harvest update, the Avalanche had a 150% size modifier, which made it easier to use. Players could then keep a bigger distance between them and the boss due to the increased weapon size. But now that the weapon is smaller than it used to be, it can be harder to avoid hits from the boss while trying to hit it with snowflakes as many times as you can. Now it's finally time for the testing part. To make this more interesting, I decided to trap myself into a box and use a bunny statue spawner to trigger the special snowflakes of my weapon. Our first test would be the Destroyer. Also, another interesting thing is the fact that this weapon is so good against the Destroyer that it only deals 50% damage to him with its projectiles. But as you can see, this isn't enough to stop us from damaging him while face tanking him. So next time you find yourself struggling with him, just get the Avalanche and you'd have no problems. Also keep in mind that this is a fight with the Destroyer after I beat all the mechanical bosses, so he isn't nerfed. So if it's your first time fighting him, it's going to be even easier, as he would have 20% less HP and damage. Alright, so here is the gear and the buffs that I used. Next up, let's see how the Aquatic Scourge would handle the Avalanche. We are using the exact same setup here, including the buffs and the potions and accessories. As you can see, the Avalanche is even better for him, as he does not have the 50% damage resistant to it, unlike the Destroyer. And again, the bunnies are carrying us hard into this fight with all the projectile spawn. And there you have it, the Aquatic Scourge was down in like 40 seconds. Okay, so the Avalanche is pretty good for these bosses, then how about we pay a visit to our old friend Astram Deus? And while we're at it, why not fight him with the same pre-mech gear? Okay, that didn't work out, but it's still possible if you're using the intended gear for his stage of progression, so technically the Avalanche can still hold up until Astram Deus, at least against the worm bosses. So yeah, that's all. As you can see, the Avalanche is still amazing for worm bosses, and it can help you out a lot if you're stuck at them, even when the weapon isn't as strong as it used to be. Thanks for watching, and see you in the next one.